So we're starting here in line 730, and we start with yamque, meaning and now. And then we can go to our main verb, propinquabam, which is just like apropinquabam. It means I was approaching, and you can tell that it's imperfect tense from the BA in the ending. And if you remember, this verb apropinquo or propinquo takes dative. So that's why you've got the dative noun portis here, dative plural, meaning gates. So, and now I was approaching the gates. And quer videbar. Now, videbar is again imperfect tense. You can tell that from the BA. It has a passive looking ending, but actually, this is a deponent verb. It could be passive. It could be I was being seen, but in the context, it's not going to mean that. It's going to mean I seemed or I was seeming from videor. So I seemed, and then you've got this perfect infinitive, sise. I seemed to have accomplished. And then the object is omnem viam, accusative case, the whole journey, literally the whole street. So just to go back to the beginning of that bit, and now I was approaching the gates and I seemed to have accomplished the whole journey. And then we can go to cum subito. Cum meaning when. Remember, cum plus ablative means with, but cum plus a verb means when or since. There's no ablative here just next to cum, so we'll go with when. So cum and then subito, suddenly, when suddenly. And then you've got this adjective creber, which means here I might say crowding, perhaps. Crowding ad auris, towards my ears. That's ad plus accusative. Remember, this ending, it's not dative or ablative plural. That would be auribus. It is the equivalent of aures in prose. So it is the accusative plural. So when suddenly, crowding towards my ears, and then the subject is sonitus, the sound. Pedum is genitive plural, the sound of feet. Visus, this is short for visus est, seemed, again from that deponent verb videor, seemed ad esse, to be present. So when suddenly, crowding towards my ears, the sound of feet seemed to be present. And quer my father, genitor, poetic word for pater, my father, and then there's a present participle going with genitor, which is prospiciens. That ns at the end tells you it's a present participle. And that means something like peering, and then you've got per plus accusative, per umbram, through the shadow or through the gloom. And then, okay, the subject is genitor, and the main verb is exclamat. He cries or exclaims. And then you have nate, which is a poetic version of filius, so it means son, and here it's in the vocative case, so he's addressing Aeneas. He says, son, and then there's an imperative after that, fuge, flee, and then he says nate again, flee, son. And then he says, very briefly, very concisely, propinquant, they are approaching. And presumably, they refers to the Greeks. And he explains a little bit more then. He says in the next sentence, kerno, I see. And then the object is ardentis clipeos. Ardentis, again, in prose would be ardentes. So this is an accusative plural phrase. And the nt tells us it's a present participle. So I see the burning shields, ardentis clipeos, the burning shields. And atque, and then you've got another present participle with the nt in the middle, micantia, flashing bronze, aira. Grammatically, that's plural. I would translate it perhaps as singular. So it's very dark at this point. We're still kind of in the night time here. And But the old man, Anchises, Aeneas's father, sort of spots the light that there is reflecting off the shields and weapons of the Greeks. So that's why he's telling Aeneas to run away. Then, next sentence, we start with hic, which can mean here, or it can mean at that point, when it's got the long I. With a short I, it means this or he. So let's translate hic as at this point in this context. So at this point, and then the subject is the noumen in line 735. And noumen it's like a god, but it's a little bit vaguer. It's a kind of divine power or divinity. So let's say divinity, and the divinity is described as male amicum. Right? Amicum ends with the M, not because it's the object, it's not accusative, it's just neuter. So it's neuter nominative case. So so male means badly, and amicum means friendly. So badly friendly just means, in English we would say unfriendly. So hic at this point, a male amicum noumen, an unfriendly divinity. And then Aeneas says, nescio quod, I do not know which one. I don't know what divinity it was. And then the main verb is eripuit. That means tore away from. And this verb takes dative here, and the dative is mihi. So tore away from me. And then the object there is here the confusam. So in fact, sorry, before we get to confusam, let's just do trepido, because trepido is dative agreeing with mihi. So tore away from me being alarmed, or you might say in my alarm. And now I think we can do the object, which is confusam mentem. Confusam meaning confused, and mentem meaning mind. And those are both accusative because they're the object. So I'll just go back through that sentence from hic again, because it's a difficult one. At this point, an unfriendly divinity, I know not what, tore from me in my alarm my confused mind. So in other words, Aeneas does something sort of rash or silly or kind of irrational or whatever, and he's kind of blaming this on the gods, essentially. He sort of can't explain it in any other way, how he would do this. And what he does, basically, is loses track of his wife, as we'll see in a moment. So then, in the next sentence, we can start with namque, meaning for, introducing an explanation. So we're now going to find out in what sense he lost his wits. For dum sequor, while I follow. Sequor looks passive, but it's not, because it's a deponent verb. While I follow, and the object is awia, literally not streets or away from streets. So these are kind of little alleyways that are sort of separate or sort of away from the main streets. We might translate it as byways or something. And then cursu is ablative case. It means with running or at a run. And then we have et and excado, I depart from, and that takes ablative. So the ablative is nota regione. Nota meaning known, and regione meaning sort of region or direction or area or something. And then viarum is genitive plural of streets. So just to go back to namque, for while I follow byways at a run and leave the familiar direction of streets. And then you have this interjection, heu, alas. And then the new subject is conjunx Creusa, my wife Creusa, who we haven't really met before in our text. My wife Creusa, erepta. This is short for erepta est. It's perfect passive. my wife Creusa was snatched away. Um, and then snatched away here. Um, this is going to this basically means, yes, snatched away from me in this context, and then she's snatched away by, and you've got an ablative phrase here, by a misero fatone. Okay, by a wretched fate. Now, it's worth just pointing out here there are some variations in the text. So, in some editions, you will see fatone. In other editions, you will see fato, and then you will see the word me after that word and before erepta. And in that case, the me means from me. So it's a shortened version of mihi. It's dative case, and in a sort of weird poetic way, that's translated as me, as from me. So we don't actually know what Virgil wrote originally. It's because there are different manuscripts of the Aeneid that survive, and we don't know which one was Virgil's original. Maybe there were different drafts, or maybe just different versions arose over time. So don't worry about it. It's just my wife Creusa was snatched away, or snatched away from me, by a misero fato, a wretched fate. Okay, then we get this this verb in the next line 739, substitit, she stopped. Or you could say, did she stop? The text that you get might print a question mark there, or it might not. But again, it doesn't matter. And remember, the Romans didn't use punctuation, so all the punctuation is just a kind of addition by later, modern editors. So, did she stop? And then ne here, I mean, this is kind of suggesting that it's a question, although the grammar is all a bit muddled here, reflecting, I think, Aeneas's confusion in his own mind. Did she erawit? Did she wander? And then via is ablative. It's kind of short for via, from the path. Did she wander from the path? Or, seu, did she resedit? Did she sit down? Lapsa. Now, lapsa is a PAP, perfect active participle, from a deponent verb. Literally, it means having slipped down. We could just translate it as exhausted, right? Tired, something like that. Basically like fessa. And then in the beginning of the next line, we just have this adjective, incertum, which means uncertain. And again, the grammar here just doesn't really work, right? The word uncertain just kind of comes from nowhere. And I think Virgil is deliberately reflecting Aeneas's kind of distraught mental state in this quite broken Latin grammar that he's using. Okay, I'll just go to the end of the sentence and then go back through those few lines there. So, nec here means not, and then est reddita, which is the same as reddita est. This is perfect passive. So she was not given back. And then post means sort of later or afterwards, like postea. And then dative case, nostris oculis, to our eyes. Or you could say to my eyes, because very often in poetry, the word us or our really is referring to me or my. And I think here Aeneas does seem to be thinking more of himself than of other people. So let me just go back a little bit. Let me go back to namque here. So, for while I follow byways at a run and leave the familiar direction of streets, alas, my wife Creusa was snatched from me by a wretched fate. Did she stop? Did she wander from the path or sit down exhausted? Uncertain. She was not ever again restored to my eyes. Okay. So we can then go on into line 741, and we can go to nec, which means nor, and then the main verb is respexi, nor did I look back for, and the object is misam. This is a PPP, perfect passive participle, and it means the one having been lost. Or, since it's feminine, you could say the woman having been lost. So, nor did I look back for the lost one. Or, that's the where at the end of animum, which could be written UE or VE. So, nor did I look back for the lost one. Or, reflexi, turn back. And then the object of that is animum, turn back my mind. Until, now prius and quam, although they're in two different lines, they kind of go together. So the idea is, nor did I do X before I did Y, right? So the prius and the quam sort of connect the two phrases. So, nor did I look back for the lost one or turn back my mind, in other words, think about Creusa, until we venimus, until we came to the mound, tumulum, which is accusative. So imagine the word ad before it, ad tumulum, to the mound, and quae sacratam sedem, holy home, sacred home, of, and then you have a genitive phrase, antiquae cereris. Antiquae meaning ancient, and cereris being the goddess Ceres. So, in other words, they get to her kind of temple. And when they get there, Aeneas suddenly stops and thinks, where's my wife gone? And he realizes that he's lost her. Okay. So, just to go over that sentence again from nec, nor did I look back for the lost one or turn back my mind until we came to the mound and the holy home of ancient Ceres. Okay. Then, after that, after the colon, we can start with hic, meaning here. So here, daemum means at last, just like tandem. And then you've got an ablative absolute, omnibus, meaning everyone, and then collectis is the PPP, having been gathered. So with everyone having been gathered, una, one woman, and it's feminine, so we know it refers to a woman. One woman, de fuit, was missing, and that is, of course, Creusa. And et, fefelit, literally deceived. We might say something like had vanished from. I think that's the point. She had vanished from her, and grammatically it's perfect, but I think in English we'd probably use pluperfect there. She had vanished from her comites, her companions. So we've got three objects here: comites, her companions, and her son natum, and her husband virum. Right? So the natum, the son, that refers to Ascanius, which is the son of Creusa and Aeneas, and then the virum, the husband, that is Aeneas himself. So I'll just go back to hic for a moment. Here at last, with all having been gathered, one woman only was missing and had vanished from her companions and son and husband. By the way, when I said one woman only, there's no word for only in the Latin, but I think that's the idea that Virgil is trying to put across here. Okay, and then we'll do one last sentence here. Quem means whom, right? It's accusative, so it's the object. And then known is not, and then incusavi is the main verb. So whom did I not accuse? And then mains literally means out of your mind, and it's nominative, so it's referring to the subject I. So whom did I not accuse being out of my mind or in my frenzy? And then you've got two genitive plurals, hominumque, deorumque, of men and of gods. Out, or, quid, what, and then crudelius is a comparative adjective, crueler, and it's neuter. So I would say crueler thing. What crueler thing, or what more cruel thing, did I see, did I see in plus ablative, and then eversa is a PPP agreeing with urbe. So in the having been overthrown city. So in the having been overthrown city. And finally, I'll just go back from quem up to urbe. So whom did I not accuse in my frenzy of men and gods? Or what crueler thing did I see in the overthrown city?